Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're going to be talking about reloading 6mm arc, specifically with the 80 grain VT. The whole purpose of this video is going to be working with 3 separate powders. I want to do 2 charge weights for each of those powders, kind of run you through how I do an initial load development for a predetermined bullet that I want to use. I want to see how accurate I can get these. This is going to be for my Coyote thermal hunting gun. It's an 18-inch barrel. The velocity is not something that I'm going to be too tied up on here. Basically, my biggest thing is I want the most accuracy that I can get. And if it's the most velocity out of the loads, it's just going to be a plus. If it's the lowest velocity, but it's the most accurate, it's not going to make a difference to me, because at the end of the day, I'm looking for the accuracy of it. Most of our shots are going to be within inside 300 yards. It's easy to compensate for. So that being said, the first part of this series, it's going to be 2 videos. The first part is going to be getting this load development done, walking you through exactly what I do when I start doing a load for a particular thing that I'm after. Some of the components we're going to be using is a Hornady 80 grain VT bullet. I think these bullets are very ideal for coyote hunting. They got very good expansion. They're not very good for fur. On the 6 arc side of things, if you want something better for fur, I'm going to lean you towards like the 87 VMAXs, or like I believe Nosler's got an 85 grain. Something to that nature might be a little bit better. They got a little bit more of a little bit thicker of a jacket than these do, and that will help kind of hold stuff together. It doesn't fly apart. The other stuff that we're going to be using is some once fired 6mm arc brass. I cleaned this in a tumbler that was 50% corn cob, 50% walnut shell. Went through, polished them. It does a good job. It's nothing fancy. It's just a Harbor Freight vibratory tumbler. It is the Liebman Media. Like I said, it's half corn cob, half walnut. That's kind of what I grew up using. If I don't use that kind of media, I'll ultrasonic clean, but this is a suppressed gun, and being it is suppressed, the brass is a little bit dirtier than normal. The powders I'm going to be using is going to be Varget, CFE 223, and Winchester 748. There's a couple other powders I wanted to try, but those are the 3 that I already use pretty regularly. I did load some 87s a while back with some Lever Evolution. While those do shoot nice, they're kind of a lot suppressed. The smell it's unpleasant. It's not unbearable. The gas isn't that bad. They run really good. I don't have any cycling issues with them. They're not overgassed, they're not undergassed. It's just they got a weird smell to them. And these other powders, I haven't noticed them to that degree on other things I've tried. So that being said, those are the 3 powders I'm going to use. The primers are a CCI small rifle Magnum primer. Kind of across the board. A lot of people are using the Federal 205s. I already had these small rifle Magnum primers. I've had very good luck with the CCI brand stuff. I haven't used a ton of Federal for my reloading. If I do anything outside of CCI, there's a few things that I use like original Winchester primers for. Some of my older cartridges, my legacy cartridges I reload for. This stuff is going to get CCIs. The difference in primers a lot of times isn't enough to get yourself worked up about. You don't want to be using a cheap primer, and me personally, there is enough powder charge in here that I don't necessarily think that you should be using just a basic small rifle primer. You probably get away with using like a number 41 if that's all you had. If you're doing a lot of reload for 223 and you bought a 22 arc or a 6 arc or even like a 6.5 Grendel, you probably would be able to get away with a 41 primer. The only thing I maybe would see would be like in extreme cold weather, you might have a little bit of a hang fire with that. They are hotter than the small rifle. The main thing is they got a thicker primer body for gas guns with a floating firing pin is kind of what the 41s are mostly about. That being said, that's what I'm using for primers is CCI small rifle magnums. I believe it's like a 400. I'll show you when we get to that point. So the dies I'm using are Hornady custom grade dies. Nothing super spectacular off the wall. I haven't put the micrometer adjuster on the bullet seating die yet. And for this, I'm not going to. I'm seating the bullets at essentially mag length, which would be the factory length. I measured the chamber length of this rifle, and the factory rifle or the factory ammo puts it about 20 thousandths off the rifle lands. For me, doing load development, I got things that I want to do with this load development that is a little bit more tailored to custom loading than it is to custom loading for my personal rifle. More or less being able to load for multiple rifles. So I want to keep with that factory bullet overall length to keep it kind of to factory spec. So that way, if anybody, wants to buy some ammo, I can sell it. If anybody wants to use the lengths, they are correct. They are to SAAMI spec, they are to factory ammo specs. As far as the grains reloading powder, I will throw some grains out there. You guys need to do your own research. I am not liable. I am not going to speak for the load data companies. The load data for maximum loads is going to be coming from Hogden. As far as the CFE 223, the Varget, and the 748, it's on their website. You can look it up. Use your own judgment. I'm going to be doing, like I said, 2 different grain loads for each of the 3 powders. One is going to be, a half grain off of max, off of what they have listed, and the other one's going to be a grain and a half off of max. And basically what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to find that window, and then we'll fine tune it from there. I don't personally think that for a cartridge like this that we're too worried about a 1/10 of a grain. That being said, if we do find something interesting, maybe we will fine tune on it in the second part of this video series for the 6mm arc 80 grain VTs. So let's get diving into this. Let's get this brass lubed up and sized, and we will go over and trim it after that. So as you can see, I have the brass in this tray. Like I said, I'm doing 2 charge weights for each powder, so that's why these are in their own well. The block doesn't quite lay out that way. So this is a block that I have labeled for lubed cases. This is what I only use it for. I don't use this for anything else other than I lube the cases, and then from this block they get sized, and then they go into a different block that they'll finish the process out with. It just kind of helps with, there's a lot of oil film on this, and I don't like charging around a lube, like my lube tray, just so I don't get some powder on it and stuff like that. It's just kind of a ease of operation thing for me, helps keep the rest of my trays clean. I'm using One-Shot case lube. I've used this for years, and it works out good for me. All we're gonna do with it is pop the cap off, make sure it's shook up good, and I'm going to go about a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to spray all the cases. Make sure you get it in the necks. and I'll give it just quick spurts on this side to make sure I got the back of the next hit. I'm gonna let it sit for a minute. It will dry down just a little bit, and it'll be ready to size. Once they're sized, like I said, they're gonna go into a different tray. I haven't had an issue with this not drying or leaving a residue that the powder sticks to or giving me any fits like that. Spray it on, let it sit for a minute, size them. By the time you're done sizing them and done trimming them, the residue's pretty well dried off, wiped up, you're not gonna have any issues. So after the lube is dried, we can go ahead and we can take our brass and put it in the shell holder, and we're gonna run into our full length sizing die. We wanna make sure our primer gets pushed out, our case is all the way ran up into the full length sizing die, and we'll pop this back out. I have my headspace comparator on here. It is zeroed. We want to check our headspace. Right here, our headspace is a little high. So we want to just double check to make sure that we ran it all the way up. Make sure that it's camming over before we make any adjustments. Some of this brass is a little bit springier than others, so we are 191. To me, that's acceptable. My single fired brass is 1 inch 196. Factory head space, the brass on factory loaded ammo is 1 inch 186. We're still well within brass headspace specs, according to Sammy. I'm looking somewhere around 6 to 8 bump on gas impingement systems, such as the ARs. So we are good there on the 1 inch 191. I'm shooting for 1 inch 190. I have a feeling that if we go, when we go to trim this, that this one's already trimmed, and it is because some of this brass, this is the second time being sized. So let's size a couple more pieces, and if that's a common theme that they are 1 inch 191, we will go and make an adjustment to the die. When you do make an adjustment to the die, if you want to shorten your distance, you screw the die down. If you need to make your headspace measurement taller, you screw the die up. Inch 192. Let's double check that to make sure that is ran all the way through the motion again. Looks like we're gonna end up making an adjustment to this die. Well, maybe not. We're 1 inch 190. Let's try a couple more pieces. This is the thing about really trying to tailor your headspace, is it's going to take a little bit to get your adjustment down. Like I said, if we were going to go back to the factory headspace and we were just going to set this die all the way down, that usually is going to get you somewhere between, you know, in this case, that 1 inch 186 and 1 inch 190. It's 4 thou, give or take, and which is fine. Again, it's still within spec. We're also within spec here, but I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to go for 1 inch 190, so I have about that 6 to 8 thou of headspace gain on our chambers. Right here, 1 inch 189. So we are, like I said, right within the spec. I'll run another one in here, we'll check it, and then I'll finish these off, and then we'll go back to trimming. 1" 190. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish this off. I'm gonna run these through, checking every 1 and every 5. And then when I come back to you guys, we'll be over at the trimmer and we're gonna go through. I'll show you guys what I'm looking for when I'm trimming and how I'm doing my chamfer inside and out. So we have them all full length sized and decapped. No primer in there. So now we're gonna come over here and we're going to trim them. This is just a universal side. Shell holder on this side. I already have this pretty well set to what we need. What we're looking for is 1" 480 for the case overall length. That's kind of the trim to length on the 6mm arc. So we're gonna come in here and we're just gonna give it a few spins. Now I'm gonna see comments down there asking why I don't have a 3-way trimmer head on here. Here's the reason I don't have a 3-way trimmer head. So these are all once fired brass. I have looked at them, I've cleaned them, I've lubed them, I've run them all through the sizing die. This is my last chance to get a good look at the neck prior to putting a primer in this and filling it with powder. So I still, after all this time and all the reloads I've done over the years, prefer to hand chamfer. You can do it however you want. If you want to go buy a 3-way head for every caliber that you have, go for it. That's fine. I can get on board with the idea of making it easier. But, like I said, this is my last quality check prior to putting a primer in it. You know, as you can see here, I'm turning the case as I'm chamfering the outside. And I'm looking at the neck all the way around. Now I'm going to chamfer the inside of the neck. And I can see that my chamfer's good. I'm going to turn it over and I just have a primer pocket. I use it for cleaning the primer pocket, but it kind of uniforms the depth. Sometimes you'll get these cases that aren't quite perfect on the depth. So I just run this until this is tight. And what this does is I have enough light in my shop that I can actually see through this primer hole and I can see that's cleaned out. I don't have any tumbler media in here. I don't have an obstruction of the flash hole. So again, I'm gonna hear it in the comments because I've gone through this before where people ask why I don't have the 3-way cutter. When I get my automated press running, I probably won't be shooting or reloading a lot of once fired brass in it, and what I am, it's gonna be 223, so it's not overly technical on the accuracy end of it. It's gonna be accurate, but it doesn't need to be to the degree of this. So right here we have 1.480. 1.480 inches. So that is our trimmed length. Like I said, I've gone through and I've inspected this. Let's do one more together, and then I will turn around and I will finish these and then we'll prime them all. So like I said, you want to just give it a good couple turns here. Sometimes I just kind of press down on the lever lightly and let the case turn in here to make sure that it is trimmed all the way around and square. I'll come through here and I will do an outside chamfer. That gives me a good chance to look at the outside of the neck. I do an inside chamfer. It gives me a good look at the actual chamfer of the neck to make sure it's not too much, too little. Make sure, you know, you can feel it as you're turning it if it's out of round. You ain't gonna be able to tell a very little difference, but if for some odd reason between the sizing and now something got bumped, you will feel it when you go to do the inside chamfer. We're gonna make this primer pocket a uniform depth. I'm gonna look down through here. The flash hole's clean, no obstructions. There's no swedging in the primer pocket, no media in it, and we're good to go. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna finish trimming all these cases, Once I get that done, I'll see you guys over at the press, and we're going to prime these on the press. So now that we have them all sized, we're going to prime them, and we're going to prime them on the press here with this primer. Not really the way I enjoy doing it. My hand primer is broke, and I'm waiting to get my new one in. I wanted to get these loaded now because I'm going to have some time this week to take the thermal off my gun and try shooting these for accuracy. That being said, this is how we're going to do it. I'm to a blank hole here that I don't have a die. I can go and set one primer in here at a time. We just take the case, we put it in here, we run it up, we flip this arm in, and we put a decent amount of pressure on it. You're gonna have to kind of check this out a couple times to make sure that your priming depth is good. Right here we're good, we're sank in deep enough. We didn't really crush the primer at all. So we'll go through and we will keep doing this one at a time. We'll go through and prime them. Like I said, you're gonna kind of have to get the feel of what is putting the primer deep enough without crushing it. It feels pretty good there. There is a little pin on there. I have a mark in that last primer. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, and then I'm gonna finish priming these. Big thing with priming, you don't want them set too deep, but you for sure don't want them sticking out past. You're okay to be a little bit subsurface, but you do not want them to be encroaching on, protruding out of the primer pocket. That's a big thing when priming. That's what you gotta look for. Like I said, there's just a little bit of where they had turned this pin, there's a rough spot. This is the first time I've had to use this. So I'm gonna get this kind of cleaned up, fixed up here. Then we're going to finish priming these, and then I'll bring you guys back in when we're gonna do the charges and the bullet seating. So in my powder trickler, I already have my CFE 223. I have enough in here to do the loads I need to do. I guess we'll go over the load data first, but the first one for CFE is 31 and a half. So while this is dispensing, I'll go over some of the load data here. So this is directly off the Hogden's website. The first one would be CFE 223. They're showing a 32 grain max. This is a compressed load. Kind of for me, for development, I want to start a half a grain off a max. If you are new to reloading, start, I personally would, if I have never loaded before, probably start in the middle of the max and the minimum and work your way up. That being said, I'm going to start a half grain off a max myself because I kind of already have kind of done some of these loads, and I'm pretty familiar with the pressures and kind of the safeties of things. So my two loads for CFE 223 are going to be 31 and a half and 31. That'll give me two pretty good ideas of if this powder is going to be accurate with these ADVTs out of my rifle. The second one that we're going to be doing is going to be Varget. It's showing a 29.2 max. I'm going to start 28.7 and a 28.2 load for it. The third powder I'm using is a Winchester 748. It's showing 30.2 as the max grains. I'm going to be loading 29.7 and 29.2. And again, this is the max grains are going off of a 52,000 psi, as it will be loaded in a gas gun, not a bolt gun. If you're doing a bolt gun, seek bolt gun information for reloading charges. We are getting a new powder trickler, is where I was quoting with this. This one kind of gets stumped. It'll get about 1/10 of a grain from where you're going, and it will kind of lock up and not know what to do sometimes. So, that being said, that is the powders we're using. That is the grains that I'm going to be loading to be testing. I am by no means the owner of this information, and I do not hold myself liable for this information, well, if you use it or not. Again, Ogden Powders, their reloading data center is where all this information has come from. If you guys want to dig into that more, that is on you. So I'm going to trickle this and get us to our 31.5. We are at our 31.5 now. I'm going to pan the camera around here for you. Now I've already loaded a few of these to get my bullets heater correct. I have my funnel on here. Tap that powder down. This is a compressed load, so the powder is, I'm going to move this funnel out of here just so it's not in the way. So the powder is filled up to the neck. We're going to put it in the press. Here's our 80 grain VT. We're going to set it on here, and we're going to run it up. Now we're looking for, I have my bullet compensator on here. This is how I prefer to measure it. You can measure an overall length. I do not have the overall length on me currently. I just have the compensated length from the bullet ogive. What we're going for is 1.697. Oh, this shut off on me. Let's make sure this is zeroed. That is zeroed. Again, 1.697 is what we're after. This is 1.696. Let's double check it. Sometimes you just give it a little bit of a spin. Just in case the case head's not straight. But all the way around, we're showing a 1.696. So what we can do is we can just very slightly back out the seating depth. When I get more into reloading these, once I get my loads nailed down, I'm going to change this out with the dial, micrometer style. But I take these old blocks here and I label them with what powder I'm using and what the charge weight is. When I figure it out and I want to clean this off, I just take some part solvent, brake clean, and I will wipe this off, and they're good to use, and I can take this information off so that way it's not on here forever. That way when I go to do load development in the future, if I want to use these blocks, there's no information on them to throw me off. Let's do one more here. Okay, we're at 31.5. we're looking about 1.696 and a half. That's where we're going to leave it at. If it's 1 thou more off of the rifling, we're really not going to see the difference. So I'm going to go through here. I'm not going to bore you guys to death with the powders. I have one more to do with the 31 and a half grains of CFE 223, and then I'm going to move to the 31s. I will clean out my powder trickler. I will put Varget in there. I will do my 2 different Varget loads. I'll clean out the trickler again, and I'll do my 748. I'm going to get all these loaded up. I'm going to get these all put into blocks, and I will see you guys to close out this video and talk about what we're going to do leading into the next video. So that's kind of an in-depth overview on how I go through and work on load development. You know, like I said, we got the 748 powder, the Varget, and the CFE 223. On a more bulk production standpoint, I would prefer not to use the Varget just because it's more of a longer longer pellet powder kind of deal. You know, as far as metering, it doesn't meter as good as, say, the 748 or the CFE 223. If it's the most accurate, I mean, I'll work around it. You know, I will make it work. I'm just not a big fan of when I meter through with that cylindrical powder, having to break the cylinders of powder itself. You know, if I use a like an auto charge versus my trickler. So kind of what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to get my gun clean. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to put the scope on it. I'm going to zero it with factory ammo. I'm going to take 5 shots after it's zeroed with factory ammo and show that group. And then I'll do a 5-round group with the 3 powders and the 2 charge weights with those 3 powders. So we're going to have 7 groups total when we're all done, so we can compare factory versus this powder with this load and go through and figure out if we can make it more accurate than the factory loadings. I'm not too worried about velocity here. You know, shooting with chronograph is great, especially if you're doing any kind of ballistic calculations. You need to know that feet per second. As far as your loads go, it's nice to know a standard deviation. I'm not too worried about that right now. I'm more worried about the accuracy and seeing what powder seems to have the harmonics and everything in the barrel as far as what it likes. Once we get that figured out, then yes, we can go through and dial in the powder a little bit, try to get our standard deviation and our velocities kind of where we need to be. But you know, my big thing with these newer cartridges, they're not speed demons. I mean, they're not 220 Swifts. They're not you know, like the fastest things in the world, and they don't need to be. They're efficient. They can get done what needs to get done under 3,000 feet per second. You know, the factory ammo out of my gun is below 3,000 feet per second, and it shoots fine. It shoots great, and it does its job. So that's why I'm not too hung up on velocity when starting loads like this. You know, if it was something legacy and we had you know, a plethora of loading data, and I've loaded it before, then yeah, I'm gonna, any new load, I'm gonna, you know, see if I can fine tune that velocity. But I don't think it's as big of a deal with this, because again, you know, the goal with this is I want to use the 80 VT, and I'm shooting a maximum of 300 yards on average. Again, this is my thermal coyote hunting rifle. The majority of our hunting areas are 300 yards and in. We do have a few spots that, you know, are 400 or 500 yards, but I'm not too worried about that. If they get hung up at 500 yards, We don't hunt them for a living. We do it for fun. We will come back some other time and see if we can get them called in closer than that. So that being said, thank you guys for kind of staying along with all this. This is all a new setup. I've only had this bench set up for about 2 weeks now. So I'm still kind of going through some of the motions of it. We're going to be bringing you some more loading data and going through building loads. We got some oddball ones coming up that we're going to work on. One is a 257 Roberts. So if you have a bob and you want to reload for it, we will have a 257 Roberts reloading video. 35 Whelen is another one that we are going to be doing in the future, as well as, you know, just your normal 30-06, 2250, 223. Haven't fully decided yet if we're going to do a 220 Swift reloading video. 220 Swift seems to be coming back. I do like that cartridge. I mean, I'm a 2250 guy, but the 220 Swift is cool. The other thing we're going to be doing is 243, and we're going to be doing a varmint load for 243 shot out of an AR-10. So that's going to be cool. So if you guys are liking this, go ahead and like and subscribe. Like I said, we'll be coming in once this video airs. The part 2 of this will probably be a week after it. So you guys have a good day, and we'll see you on the next video.